What happens when the patience of a nation runs thin? A dark shadow looms over Poland as the threat from Russia escalates. With missiles and drones landing on NATO territory, fear grips the hearts of those living near the border. Today Ukraine, tomorrow Poland. A rallying cry echoes among the populace. Citizens demand action. Their voices rise, insisting that Poland must bolster its military strength. With the Russian menace intensifying, tens of thousands are stepping forward to train, prepared to defend their homeland. As Grzegorz Dzienkiewicz, head of the Polish Army Recruitment Center, reveals, over 20,000 citizens were already under arms training within the first half of 2025, with expectations for another 40,000 by year's end, a staggering increase from the previous year. Yet, impatience simmers within society. The ongoing war in Ukraine has made many Poles believe that merely waiting would spell disaster. This anger manifests on the streets of Poland, signaling a profound understanding. This conflict now threatens their very existence. With reality escalating, Poland's eastern border stands not merely as a line on a map but as a battleground brimming with tension. Recently, the unwelcome sight of 19 Russian drones breaching their airspace caused alarms to ring loudly in Warsaw. In response, the Polish government called for urgent consultations under Article 4 of the NATO Charter, marking a sobering milestone as it became the seventh invocation since the war began. As the gravity of the situation intensifies, Poland prepares a historic troop mobilization. Deploying 40,000 soldiers to their eastern frontier, the largest such maneuver since the Cold War era. Images flood social media of Polish convoys, tank carriers, and munitions rush to the border, as NATO's responses multiply a collective stand against repeated aggressions. The message is clear: Poland is not waiting for danger to strike, they are strengthening their defenses. As military exercises unfold across the border, a heightened sense of determination permeates Poland's ranks. The North Atlantic Council convenes, tackling the mounting crisis born from Poland's plea for NATO unity. Rhetoric shifts to discussions concerning Article 5, a more severe level of deterrence. The heart of the matter is how NATO will navigate its military readiness while facing Russian pressure. Troops lining the eastern border represent the first threshold of concern for Moscow, particularly given the observed military buildup in Belarus and repeated airspace violations. Now, Poland views the security of its borders not merely as a national concern but as a barometer of regional stability. The evolving situation on the ground creates both an opportunity for confidence and a risk for escalation. In this climate, Poland emphasizes readiness like never before, engaging in heightened air policing and rapid response protocols. Each move is intentional, every decision crafted for maximum deterrent effect. On the Polish front, steel barriers, watchtowers, and surveillance systems are being fortified. This strategic defense plan aligns with critical transit routes, showcasing Poland's razor-sharp focus on both preventing aggression and controlling border crossings. Recently, Poland announced indefinite closures of border crossings with Belarus, citing the burgeoning risk of hybrid threats. The ramifications ripple through freight and passenger traffic, tightening Belarus's ties to Europe. In response, Belarusian officials have denounced these actions, framing them as destructive, while demanding Poland's return to diplomatic norms. Meanwhile, the pervasive military buildup on the Belarusian side hints at an impending status quo that deepens Russia's grip on the region. The stakes continue to rise. Poland's fortifications are a signal to both Belarus and Moscow that they are prepared to defend their sovereignty. With the events unfolding, will this mobilization prove effective? Can Poland effectively deter a greater conflict? Tensions heighten as the window for diplomatic solution narrows. And in an era where every decision matters, the atmosphere is charged. Both sides are poised at the brink, each waiting for the other to make the next move. The situation in Poland has escalated dramatically, triggered by a substantial military buildup in Belarus linked to the Zapad 2025 exercises. In a swift and urgent response, the Polish government activated Article 4 of the NATO Charter, marking this as their seventh invocation since the outbreak of conflict in Ukraine back in 2022. The airspace buzzes with tension, and the people feel the weight of uncertainty hanging in the air. Now, Poland is taking bold action. A daring plan to deploy 40,000 troops to the eastern border has been executed, the largest movement of forces in decades, recalling the tumultuous days of the Cold War. Imagine the sight: endless convoys of Polish vehicles lined up, heavy armor rumbling forward, fuel tankers and supplies brimming with the urgency of an impending storm. As they travel eastward from Germany, a message courses through the air like electricity: Poland is serious about its security. With exercises intensifying just across the border, Warsaw is elevating its deterrent posture. The NATO Secretary General's voice rings clear: any threat to Allied territory will be met with a decisive joint response. As the North Atlantic Council convened to discuss this situation, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The meetings delved into not just the immediate threat, they pondered the implications of moving to a higher level of deterrence under Article 5. In these critical moments, how will NATO navigate its military and political thresholds as Moscow tightens its grip on Belarus? The 40,000 troops stationed at the border are more than a mere display of force, they signal to Putin that Poland refuses to back down. Each airspace violation and troop movement is a piece of a larger puzzle, compelling decision-makers to balance their next moves carefully. Poland is resolute in its perception: it's not solely a matter of national security. Their border has transformed into a battleground for regional stability. With every snap of a twig underfoot, every distant rumble of machinery, fear dances alongside determination among the people, creating an intense atmosphere. The looming risk of escalation hangs in the air, palpable like the scent of rain before a storm. As Poland reinforces its borders, it does so with a heightened sense of vigilance. The stakes are high, and uncertainty lurks around every corner. The road ahead is fraught with tension, but as this situation unfolds, one critical question remains: how far will Poland go to protect its sovereignty in the face of growing aggression? In a world where tensions run high, Poland has recognized the critical nature of its border security. No longer just a matter of national concern, it stands as a significant front in the wider regional struggle for deterrence against a looming threat. Right now, the chessboard is set. Poland's decision to mobilize an incredible 40,000 troops is about much more than mere numbers. It signals a resolute stance against aggression, with the logistics of ammunition and fuel being intensified in preparation for potential conflict. Picture this: imposing concrete steel barriers rise against the skyline, electronic surveillance systems hum in the air, and watchtowers scan the horizon, ready for any signs of encroachment. The meticulous planning intertwines with strategic choke points, like the Suwałki Corridor, providing a critical buffer against possible incursions. But that's not all. The strategy continues with an overhaul of aerial defenses and police patrols. Frequency and speed are the new rules of engagement. The operation of the corridor connecting Germany to Poland serves as a backbone for rapid military reinforcements, with convoys of trucks and heavy machinery steadily making their way eastward, embodying a show of strength directed at both Minsk and Moscow. The message? There is zero tolerance for ambiguity at this border. By closing border crossings with Belarus indefinitely, Poland takes a bold step, citing risks that range from military threats to hybrid warfare that could escalate during the Zapad exercises. Is it a tough stance? Certainly. But it's crucial for the safety of the Polish people. The blockade disrupts trade and passenger flows, straining Belarus's economic lifelines to Europe. As Warsaw draws a line in the sand, the question lingers: how far will these developments tip the fragile peace that currently hangs in the balance? As the hum of military vehicles fills the air and the clock ticks down, the specter of tension looms. With every action comes reaction, and the stage is set for a confrontation that could redefine security in Europe. Will this strategy be enough to stave off potential disaster, or will it escalate tensions further? The answers lie in the shadows, as a storm brews just beyond the horizon. In a tense turn of events, Warsaw has chosen to indefinitely close its border crossings with Belarus as of September 12. The rationale? Uncertainties surrounding civilian and military safety amid the growing tensions of Zapad 2025, alongside rising fears of hybrid threats. As this decision takes effect, a ripple of disruption flows through freight and passenger traffic, choking off Belarus's main routes to Europe. The stakes are immense, intertwining military posturing with economic repercussions. Baltic and Scandinavian nations quickly rallied, proclaiming their support for Poland's bold move. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania stood as firm allies, updating their civil defense measures in anticipation of potential fallout. The closure proves to be more than just a border issue, it's a strategy to control potential infiltrations and provocations coming from Belarus. This rhetoric of safety resonates deeply within Poland, providing a political anchor that aligns with the overall sentiment in the region. However, the repercussions of this border lockdown could have unintended consequences, rendering Belarus's economy increasingly reliant on Moscow. Such dependency may pave the way for a more entrenched Russian military presence in Belarus. Moscow's response to Poland's actions? A fierce condemnation. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova argued that closing the border was destructive, warning of serious consequences for trade and transport. Russian officials dismissed Poland's troop buildup of 40,000, proposing a similar military response. The situation grows more complicated with heavy armored movements spotted along the borders between Kaliningrad and Belarus, indicating a potential escalation. This posturing is not merely defensive, it hints at larger ambitions. Poland's military buildup is aimed not only at monitoring Belarus but also ensuring a swift flow of forces southward. As tensions mount, a chilling question arises: how far will each side go to assert their influence and control? The air is thick with uncertainty and foreboding. In an atmosphere thick with tension, Poland grapples with an unsettling reality: the threat from Russia looms ever larger. As the conflict in Ukraine rages on, the palpable anxiety spills into daily life, with border residents cowering in fear each night. The general sentiment among Poles is awakening. Leave Ukraine to fend for itself, they whisper, and we'll be next. A clarion call emerges for the government to boost military readiness within NATO. Who can ignore the fact that over 20,000 Polish citizens trained for combat in just the first half of 2025? As warriors rally, the head of military recruitment hints that as many as 40,000 more may soon follow. With each passing day, this wave of urgency sweeps across the nation. As the clock ticks, Polish society grows increasingly impatient. Many believe that remaining passive will come at a grave cost, an unsettling realization that what happens just across the border affects their very existence. The anxiety bubbling on Polish streets resonates with an urgent international warning. Far beyond Ukraine, this escalating chaos threatens European stability itself. The eastern border has transformed into a high-stakes battleground where Russian drones intrude, shattering the peace, a situation that jolted officials and prompted Article 4 consultations under NATO, marking the seventh such instance since the war erupted in 2022. In response to heavy Russian military maneuvers, Poland takes decisive action. It positions an unprecedented number of troops at the eastern frontier, 40,000 soldiers, the largest mobilization since the Cold War. As their armored convoys, fueled by logistical support, head eastward, a powerful message is sent: Poland is resolute, pushing back against the aggression that looms menacingly. Even amid this chaos, the sound of military vehicles rolling forward resonates powerfully, most notably against the backdrop of burgeoning NATO readiness. But how does war shift alliances? As Poland fortifies its borders, the biting cold of confrontation intensifies. On the ground, barriers, watchtowers, and surveillance systems heighten the sense of urgency. Could this be the tipping point? In a matter of days, border crossings near Belarus are sealed shut. The justification? An unshakable commitment to security amidst rising hybrid threats, a gambit that sends shockwaves through freight and civilian traffic alike. As neighboring countries express solidarity, Poland's hardline stance may ultimately reshape trade routes and deepen Belarus' reliance on Moscow. With mounting pressure to reassess their strategies, the dialogues between NATO and the Eastern Bloc morph into a complex dance of military readiness and political maneuvering. The deployment of air defense systems intensifies, enhancing the capacity to respond should an incident occur. With NATO's framework tightening, could this be the calm before an inevitable storm? The balance of power remains precarious, as each military readiness conveys a stark warning, one that echoes not only between allies but also toward an increasingly volatile Moscow. As the situation escalates, Poland's decisions ripple throughout the region. The consequences of closing border crossings raise an unsettling question: does this deepen Belarus' dependence on Russia and invite even more significant Russian influence within its borders? The steadfastness of Polish resolve sends a dual message, both to its enemies and its allies: this is a time for vigilance, and there's no room for miscalculation. With every troop movement, tensions rise, potentially igniting an explosive reaction to an already volatile situation. Will this militarization make Poland's borders more secure, or does it risk further provoking a response from the coalition they seek to deter? As nations weigh the gravity of their decisions, a delicate balance hangs in the air, a balancing act that could tilt in any direction, at any moment. How will history remember this pivotal moment? Earlier, we saw how Poland raised a firm defense line along its eastern frontier, determined not to bear this burden alone. NATO's strategy centers on reducing surprise and tightening reaction times, creating a resilient barrier against looming threats. Now, the spotlight falls on the vital, yet often unseen, force behind this defense, the logistical currents flowing from the west toward Poland's tense border. Beneath the surface of political declarations and military deployments, a massive convoy rhythm pulses along routes from Berlin through Frankfurt and Poznan, thundering eastward like a lifeline. Imagine the continuous rattle of heavy trucks, the metallic clanking of tank carriers, and the hum of engines rolling through cool morning air. Railways pulse with steel wheels clicking at accelerated pace, carrying not just vehicles, but essential spare parts, ammunition, fuel, and supplies, everything needed to sustain a rapid, coordinated response. Border crossings act as gates flung open faster than ever before, a signal that time itself is now an enemy to be defeated. This logistical ballet reveals a critical truth: Poland is not isolated. The power supporting its front lines is deeply collective, reaching into industrial hearts across Europe. This network of military and industrial strength doesn't just prepare for conflict, it broadcasts a clear warning to Moscow and Minsk alike. Each convoy becomes an unmistakable message: escalation carries a heavy price, and the readiness on display leaves little room for chance or error. The steady flow shouts, "We are ready. We see the risk. We have planned our countermeasures." Yet, this dynamic provokes Moscow and Minsk into intense calculation. The Zapad exercises of 2025 may claim a defensive purpose, but their scope tells a different story. The expansion of command, control, and communication systems within Belarus means a permanent military strengthening, turning the country into a lever against Poland and the Baltic states. The geography is unforgiving, positioning Minsk as a crucial chess piece in a tense game whose stakes only rise. Belarus finds itself squeezed by sanctions and economic hardship, increasingly dependent on Moscow's support just as Poland's fortified border tightens. Closing border crossings cuts deep, choking civilian and freight flows, and straining the fragile internal balance in Belarus. Could this mounting pressure ignite social cracks and fuel unrest beneath the surface? As the wheels roll eastward, and tensions rise with each passing hour, the simmering question remains: how far will Belarus and Russia push before the fragile line between deterrence and crisis shatters under the strain? The unfolding chess match is no longer distant, it echoes in the thunder of convoy engines, in the cold steel barriers, and in hearts restless across these borderlands. In the heart of Europe, a storm brews. Poland feels the tremors of a conflict that threatens to spill across its borders, and its people are beginning to snap. The persistent onslaught from Russia against Ukraine has unveiled a terrifying truth: Poland may very well be next. The urgency is palpable as citizens from all walks of life rally behind the notion that Ukraine's war today could lead to their struggle tomorrow. Act now, or face the consequences, they cry, pushing the government to fortify its military alliance with NATO. As the chilling echoes of Russian missile strikes resound, thousands of Poles answer the call to arms, enrolling for military training. In 2025 alone, over 20,000 have signed up, with numbers expected to double. The tension is mounting, with frustrations boiling over in the streets. Passive waiting is no longer an option, the stakes have never been higher. On Poland's eastern border, the air crackles with anxiety. After a cloud of Russian drones invaded its airspace, panic swept through the capital. The Polish government urgently called NATO to discuss the escalation under Article 4, marking a significant rise in military readiness since the start of the conflict. The sight of tanks and troop transports rolling toward the east sends a clear message: Poland will not go down without a fight. But what if this show of strength only invites more trouble? Across the border, Moscow is quietly sharpening its own strategic plan, increasing military presence and launching propaganda campaigns aimed at sowing discontent within Poland. With tensions rising, every boundary pushed could ignite a spark. Will this lead to reckless miscalculations? As NATO troops prepare for action, the air is thick with anticipation and dread. Poland's military strategy emerges as a multi-layered behemoth, aligned with its vision for deterrence. The deployment isn't merely a number, it represents a new fortified concept. In the shadow of looming conflict, fortified barriers and advanced surveillance technologies rise along the border, creating an impenetrable shield. Yet, amid this tension, diplomatic efforts still flicker. Will the balance of power hang in the balance or collapse under the strain? The battleground is not just on the front lines but involves intricate heartstrings of political maneuvering and potential economic turmoil. As Poland closes its borders, a ripple effect slams through Belarus, tightening its dependence on Russian power. What will the repercussions be? The cornered bear may retaliate. Is this strategic maneuvering by Poland a glimpse into resilience, or an invitation to escalation that could lead to chaos? Only time will tell if this delicate balance will hold or crumble as the rhythm of military readiness beats on. Will Poland's preparations forge an impenetrable wall against potential aggression, or simply invite a more determined attack from Moscow? As this high-stakes game unfolds, every move is fraught with peril, and the air is imbued with the bitter scent of uncertainty. As tensions continue to rise in Europe, Poland stands on the front lines of a conflict that threatens its very sense of security. The echoes of alarm bells fill the air as the shadow of aggression from Russia stretches ominously over the nation. A stark reality has emerged: the patience of the Polish people is at an end. Day after day, they lie awake in fear as news of missile strikes and drone incursions cut through the din of everyday life. A rising chorus of voices cries out, "Today it's Ukraine, tomorrow, it could be us." In response to these fears, the Polish government musters its forces. The head of the Polish Army Recruitment Center, Grzegorz Zienkiewicz, reveals a staggering truth: in early 2025, over 20,000 Poles had either completed military training or were in progress. The commitment is clear: Poland is ramping up its military capacity, with a projected 40,000 more volunteers stepping up before the year is out, a stark doubling from just 2 years prior. Will this be enough? As the conflict drags on and hostility grows, the atmosphere is charged with impatience. Most Poles now believe that mere passivity will lead to disaster. The battlefield is no longer only in Ukraine, it has seeped into their very borders, transforming Poland into a precarious frontline in a surging war. The invasion of 19 Russian drones into Polish airspace causes panic in Warsaw, inciting a call for immediate NATO consultations and urgent demand that signals the gravity of the situation. Amid these developments, Poland embarks on its largest troop deployment since the Cold War: 40,000 men and women to be stationed along the eastern frontier. The rustle of soldiers' boots has become a new anthem, as convoys filled with tanks, fuel, and ammunition roll through the night. The air vibrates with determination as Poland sends a message: no longer just a spectator, it demands a change in the rules of engagement. But will this show of military might deter further aggression? NATO's Secretary General assures the alliance that any threat to its members will be met with a unified response. Yet, the rising tide of military maneuvers creates a complex web of decisions, each one with the potential to spark chaos. How will NATO manage these shifting sands of military readiness? The intricacies of Poland's border policy become evident as it closes key crossings with Belarus indefinitely. This closure is not just a security measure, it disrupts trade routes and sends shockwaves through the economy. The people can feel the weight of uncertainty hanging over them. As they grip their possessions tighter, they wonder how this move might trigger retaliation from Moscow. Moscow perceives Poland's actions as reckless, a mistake that could escalate tensions further. Russian officials deride the troop deployments, suggesting they are merely a show of fear rather than strength. But Poland's resolve is solid, standing firm against the onslaught of dismissive claims. Every convoy dispatched, every soldier mobilized, sends a message not just to Russia, but also to the resilient spirit of the Polish people who refuse to be victims. As Poland prepares for a new military reality, it becomes evident that these decisions will ripple outwards. The country is not just reinforcing its borders, it is defining its identity in the face of adversity. Could this incursion of Russian influence deepen into something more invasive? With the specter of war looming, the people know that their resistance will demand sacrifices. Each step they take is a bold declaration: the future of their nation hangs delicately in the balance. The warnings are clear: as the situation escalates, only those who prepare in advance can hope to thrive. Will courage prevail against the shadow of intimidation? In this delicate dance of power, the stakes are higher than ever. Actions taken today will determine the landscape of tomorrow. And as the orchestration of security unfolds, one question lingers heavy in the air: will Poland hold its ground, or will it risk it all for the sake of peace? In an ever-intensifying atmosphere on the Polish border, a precarious balance of power is being established. The atmosphere is heavy with fear and uncertainty. Residents hear distant rumbles and see flickers of lights on the horizon, their hearts racing at the thought of a potential invasion. This anxiety is palpable in the air, as the specter of conflict looms closer. The lines have been drawn. The phrase "Ukraine today, Poland tomorrow" echoes in the minds of many. It's not merely talk, it's a call to arms. Thousands are answering this call, rushing to military training as Poland braces for what seems inevitable. In just the first half of 2025, over 20,000 citizens completed training, with an additional 40,000 projected to follow. The urgency is thick in the air, shared in hushed conversations among neighbors and friends. Amid this tension, Polish leadership is on high alert. The invasion of drones into Poland's airspace sends shockwaves through Warsaw. The government's decisive response, summoning NATO consultations under Article 4, marks a significant escalation in their defensive posture. They are not mere spectators in this unfolding crisis, they are preparing to take charge of their fate. But how far will Poland go? Their recent deployment of 40,000 troops to the eastern border signifies an unprecedented military readiness reminiscent of the Cold War. The rhythmic sounds of military convoys, the scent of diesel in the air, and the vibration of heavy machinery create an atmosphere buzzing with energy and dread. Every troop movement is a message sent straight to Moscow. This is no longer just a Polish issue, but a direct challenge to the security of Europe. This brings up a critical question: how will NATO respond to potential provocations? Each military maneuver intensifies the stakes. Every violation of airspace brings Poland closer to a crisis point. Poland cannot afford slip-ups in judgment. Their security depends on managing this balance delicately. Yet, the fear that fills the air is countered by a resolute determination. The closure of border crossings with Belarus as a preventive measure against hybrid threats is a bold statement. Though it strains economies and logistics, it sends a stark warning: Poland will not tolerate aggression. And, amidst the emotional turmoil, this action lays the groundwork for long-term deterrence strategies aimed at increasing costs for any would-be aggressor. With each passing day, tensions mount. The rhythm of daily life has transformed into a complex dance of military readiness and political maneuvering. As Poland fortifies its defenses, questions linger: what will happen if tensions flare? Will diplomacy hold, or will war become the unfortunate answer? In a region where the line between peace and warfare grows thinner by the day, the stakes have never been higher. With every new troop deployment and every military exercise conducted, the atmosphere becomes charged with the potential for disastrous miscalculations. Will cooler heads prevail, or will the sparks of conflict ignite the powder keg of Eastern Europe? The world watches, anticipating an answer that carries the weight of history. In this new normal, one truth remains clear: aggression will not go unanswered. It's a high-stakes game where every move matters, and the future of Europe hangs in the balance. In the previous chapter, we saw how every patrol, convoy, and radar blip forms a relentless rhythm along the eastern flank, an unyielding dance of vigilance designed to slash reaction times and erase the element of surprise. This steady cadence forces Moscow and Minsk to weigh every step with caution, calculating the heavy price of any reckless move. Now, imagine a battlefield where every action is a high-stakes gamble. The strategy is clear: make conflict so costly and unpredictable that it becomes an illogical choice. This is not just a military posture, it's a carefully crafted chess game of deterrence. The goal is to freeze aggression before it even starts, to turn the terrifying prospect of war into a risk no one dares to take. But beneath this tense calm lies a volatile truth. As the lines harden and forces amass, the margin for error shrinks dangerously. One misstep, one misread signal, could ignite a chain reaction spiraling beyond control. The invisible threads of diplomacy strain under the weight of mounting suspicion and fear. Every convoy rumbling eastward, every drone buzzing near the border, is a pulse in this precarious heartbeat of crisis. And here's the twist nobody saw coming: while the world watches this standoff, a secret pact brews behind closed doors, a covert dialogue between unlikely players that could either diffuse the tension or unleash a new, unexpected front in this shadow war. Could this hidden negotiation redraw the lines of power? Or will it deepen the abyss, pushing all sides to the edge of a precipice they cannot step back from? The stakes have never been higher. The question remains: who will blink first? Or is this a game where no one dares to lose?